Well, hello there. I am coming once again, Pam Andrews, the Scholarship Shark, and I'm doing a Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and immediately after we'll download this episode or download the audio, which will be this week's podcast episode because our podcast comes out every Friday. I just want to share it a couple of places. So I'm going to keep talking as I do this. So again, for the podcast listeners, it's going to be completely unedited, very raw, no fancy music on the front end, because I just really want to get the information out, like just like last week's. It's just getting it out. There we go. And so that will go out. So it's not going to be on time. And then next week, we get back to our regularly scheduled programming. We had to shift a bit because some of the things that we normally talk about this year, like school visits during spring break, those things aren't happening. So we did shift our content because we record and edit and everything happens about a month out. You know, I do all the recording and it goes to the audio, the editor and there we go. I can share it right there. It goes out to the editor and there's like a series of events that happen. My show note writer writes about it. So this card here, I'm sorry, I'm trying to multitask and it's not working. Here we go. Let me share it to my personal page and share that. There we go. All right. Awesome. And I think I'm gonna do a watch party because this affects a lot of people. So before we jump in with today's guest, and I'm super excited to have Dr. Erin Robinson just come on and talk about just from a mental health perspective and focusing on mental wellness in the midst of this coronavirus outbreak, pandemic, crisis. We are affects a lot of people. I don't want to hear myself. So, but before that, see, now I'm like all over the place. This is the problem with multitasking. This is not good. Okay, let me put my phone down. I was trying to share it with someone, but they'll figure it out. Yeah, let me just put my phone down. Okay, there we go. There we go. There we go. I did it. Okay, I love in technology when it works and when I can figure out how to work it. Anyway, so before having Dr. Robinson come on, again, we interrupted our normal podcast episodes and our normal live content because things shifted. They shifted just for everybody in the college planning space and current college students. So Monday, coming up this Monday, we are doing a YouTube Live and a Facebook Live for high school juniors, so the class of 2021, and also high school seniors, the class of 2020. It's a masterclass for your students. They can log in, and that's going to be at, I can't remember, today's 11. I think it's 2:00 in the afternoon, and you'll see it on our Facebook and also on our YouTube. Because I know young folks don't hang out on Facebook. That's for us old folks. So, but I want them to get the content, and it's on doing a virtual tour. So I'm going to share some tools. I've got worksheets. They'll download those prior to logging in. Most kids are home anyway, and there's different forms of whether they're doing work, doing nothing. I've been talking to my students all week long, my class of 2020, and they're all over the place. Some are doing absolutely nothing. So I said, okay, great. I'll see you on Monday live. So that's 2:00. So if your young person is not on Facebook, they can hop over on YouTube Live or YouTube, the Scholarship Shark. And again, all that information, I'll post all that links in the show notes for the podcast. I'll post it here on Facebook. But if you go to our YouTube channel, you can find that there. And it's a 3-page worksheet on how to conduct a virtual tour. And it's really good. This is something even your 9th and 10th graders can do just to kind of cut their teeth with the whole college planning process. And there's some great tools out there to help you keep the process moving. Because one thing that I've been sharing with my families is we're just going to keep moving. We're going to get on the other side of this. This will pass. We're not going to be here forever. And I want you to just keep moving, just keep planning, just keep swimming. Okay. So we're going to keep moving forward. And with that in mind, helping you narrow down maybe some of your choices, because admitted student weekend is not happening for my daughter. She got into her number one choice. We found that out this week. And, bummer, she's not able to go away for that weekend. But, we had to adjust. So anyway, so for students who are trying to decide between this campus, that campus, I wanted to make sure that you had a tool to help you. And so this is just a special pop-up live masterclass. It'll be about an hour long, but they're home. They don't have anything to do. So that way, they are doing something productive. Okay. So I'm going to pull Dr. Robinson up and we're going to jump in. We're talking about coping with the coronavirus stress. How do we deal with the stress, the anxiety? What do we do in the midst of all of this, and how do we handle it? So Dr. Robinson, welcome.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you again. I saw you virtually on the live. I was actually had the laptop up and we were packing everything on Monday for his campus. So let me just give you a little bit of background information, and I'm going to pull up my comments here so I can see everything. Okay, cool. But she is the director of health and the dean of students at Ringling College of Art and Design, and that's where my son is graduating from this year. It's been a great 4-year journey that's come to an end for him. I'm still going to be there. I'm a parents association. I'm not going anywhere, but I asked her to come back on to talk about the crisis. How can we, handle it? I wanted to check in with our kids. I've, been talking with my class of 2020 students and just checking in because it's hard. It's really hard for them, and just, kind of getting a feel for where they are and what they're doing. And so I asked her just to come on and talk about it. What can young folks do and what can we do to support our young people? I think that's probably the most important thing. And then how do we handle it? Because it hurts. She was asking me right before I brought her on. And before we went live, she's like, how are you doing? I said, I'm doing okay, but I was in tears. And what I found, my community of other moms who were right there with me understood. I didn't have to explain, I didn't have to feel bad about my feelings. And, because it's hard. It's weird. I may tear up again, but we were talking. Right. I know. And so, it's hard across the board. It's not what anyone expected, but this is the reality, and let's accept it. Let's plan and let's move forward. So quickly, I will say this. I did have Dr. Robinson on episode. I'm going to just do this real fast. She did a great episode on helping your student transition. Let me show that. That was almost 2 years ago, because we're up to 150, 140. So that was several years ago. And that was for transition services to campus. Because a lot of times when students are focusing on getting into school, all you're doing is thinking about and talking to the Office of Admissions and maybe financial aid, but there's so many other services on campus. And so definitely check out that podcast episode where she just talked about transitioning to campus, which was such great. I mean, I really needed it, sending my first one off to school. I needed the transition, not having him at home. He was fine. He was gone. I needed it. And then she talked about that and what our young people go through, that separation, that natural break. And so definitely check that episode out. So Dr. Robinson, if you can just tell the listener and the viewer a little bit about you and your background.
Sure. So I'm the director of the Health Center here at Ringling College of Art and Design and the Associate Dean of Students. So our office oversees medical services and counseling services. My background is I'm a clinical psychologist, and I started my degree with a specialization in children and trauma, and specifically with children and then young adults. You have a lot of the same developmental issues going on from, a child kind of individuating away from their parent, and then a young adult, again, having this really significant transition process of individuating away from their parent, and these huge transitions. And right now, with seniors graduating or first year of college being away for 3/4 of the year, that transition process has kind of been severed to an extent and stunted. And so there's a lot of just recognition of what that does developmentally to a young adult who's, growing wings and having to figure out how that looks now and how to navigate that in a different way.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I think a lot of times students don't realize that, the mental health services on your campus are available. They're there to help, and take advantage of them. I mean, use them, especially, whether you think you need them or not, especially during some of testing and some of those high stress times. So,
right. And I'll put a plug in, and I'm speaking for Ringling, but many schools across the nation that are in a very similar position, while classes are continuing to go on virtually, so are support services.
Mm-hmm.
So therapy continues. It'll be like this, so it's, again, a process of transition, but it's really important for us in this time of uncertainty to have these really significant touch points for students where they can come and speak to their counselor. They can make an appointment with advising. They can do a time management appointment with the Student Learning Center and still have all those needs met and all that support around them. We're still holding groups. So one of our therapists, Lauren Levine, has this really great support group for seniors called Next Level Seniors. And so we're really, even right now, encouraging seniors to get into that support group, to support each other of what does it look like, searching for a job right now that's going to be more virtual, or how do you deal with graduation and what that's going on.
So now where can a senior find this support group? I didn't know about this. This is great. Where?
So any individual therapy or support group or therapy group, they can just email counseling at ringling.edu.
Okay. And this is for all students, no matter which campus, or is it just the Ringling thing?
Just Ringling.
Oh, just the Ringling. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Across the board,
campuses,
any student could contact their counseling center, and counseling centers will be providing virtual therapy
support. Yes, and telehealth. Thank you for that. That's really important. Absolutely. So definitely, even though you step foot off campus, make sure you're still plugged in to your support services to get that support, especially now in the midst of a crisis. Absolutely. More because this is a huge trigger. This could really do some things. So let's just jump in and talk about with the loss of graduation for our seniors, whether they're college students, and I am going to ask you to talk even to, because I'm a mama with two graduates, high school graduate and college graduate. We were talking a little bit before about that, and loss of prom, and spring productions, theater, all that happens. What are some of the impacts of sudden loss that you see on a young person's life?
So sudden loss in the immediacy is devastating. When you think of young adulthood and kind of where high school and college seniors are in that sense of, production and developing relationships with people. So all of these events, be it senior shows, graduation, prom, these are all things that highlight and kind of give milestones to accomplishments. When, our generations can look back at 9/11, having lived through that, to say that's a situation where in, the US, it was completely throwing people off kilter, and we had to kind of, use resilience. We kind of broke apart, and then we came back together to that new normal. And we're still in that part of navigating what that looks like. And so working together and kind of using lived experiences from older generations to give that guidance of, we're going to find a new normal. We can't really define what that new normal is right now, but it will happen. And to really acknowledge the fact that these students are devastated. And a lot of students are using that word. I'm devastated. I have fear. I'm completely overwhelmed. And to absolutely validate and acknowledge that that's an appropriate response. And it's okay not to know right now what's going to happen. But you have to talk about it and have those supports around you to say, you know what, it is overwhelming. This is devastating for you, and we'll work through it together.
I think with that devastation, I know just in my life, when I'm overwhelmed, I kind of know my go-tos, which right now are not really good. It's eating, it's sweets and salt. And so on top of our gym being closed, I'm overeating. I know I'm stress eating, and
Mhm.
and I know I'm not exercising like I normally do. I'm not in my 6 a.m. spin class because there is none, and I wouldn't go out anyway if there were one. But how can a young person, like, what's reasonable? How do they cope with now having to start classes online? And where I can binge on Netflix and kind of get by. I mean, I'm an adult, and so I can kind of survive a bit. What's reasonable? Like, how can they cope and jump back into a normal, or at least that online classwork, or how do they do that
Yeah.
in the midst of the stress?
So I think what you said earlier was point on. Just keep going,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll find that center line again. So the best thing you can do is have a routine. So if that is knowing that you're going to be in class at 12:30 and 3:30 that day, doing that, going, knowing that, it might not be really fluid at first, or, there might be hiccups along the way of trying to figure out how you can best interact in class or get your work done. But just having those touch points with classes and then with self-care. So getting out of the house, going for a walk outside, eating as a group or a family. If, we have some students who are in self-isolation right now because they went back to, their home state or home country where they were asked to just self-isolate. So taking those times to really have those touch points with people on FaceTime or phone calls, and really to have that human connection, because that is absolutely valuable right now. And then as a parent or caregiver or friend around those students, to just keep a watchful eye out for when our stress, I want to say normal stress, which is heightened stress for everyone, becomes more problematic or triggering. So if you notice that they're starting to engage in negative coping mechanisms, so sleeping all day, drinking or using substances as a way to escape the stress right now, saying like, what's the point of a future? I'm having thoughts of killing myself. Like, those are those immediate points where you want to step in and say, hey, like, let's look at this and figure out some strategies to make sure you're taking care of yourself and that you're safe.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You shared on a couple things I definitely want to talk about. I'll pick one because I feel like I can go in a couple paths. So I want to talk about that sudden loss and grieving the sudden loss. Can you share a little bit about I believe it's 5 stages of grief? Yes. And I feel like I went through all 5 in like 5 minutes.
Yes.
I literally did, because I grieved too as a mama, and so if you can just talk about what those stages are, and really how the students can walk through those stages to help them process what's happening.
Absolutely. So this is a loss. To define it, there are several little losses in between that too, whether it's, not being able to say goodbye to a roommate or have that, in-person closure with a professor or a mentor that, you feel really valuable in your life. So the 5 stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
So denial, anger, bargaining,
depression, and acceptance.
Acceptance. Okay.
And all of the stages are protective in a lot of ways and necessary to work through that loss. So when you think of denial, it's kind of that, this week when students had to move out, saying like, this isn't really happening, or, do I really have to go home? And it's kind of that way of compartmentalizing what's happening and giving yourself some cognitive time to kind of piece it apart and deal with it. And as you kind of slowly open that door and let yourself in to be like, okay, this is actually happening. You move from denial to something else.
Yeah.
And the important thing about grief is it's really dynamic. You don't kind of linearly go through each stage.
Mhm.
You might vacillate between denial and depression several times, and then feel anger, and then want to bargain. So it looks different for everybody. And you want to get to a place of acceptance, because that's when you can move forward and start doing what you need to do.
Yeah. Can I interrupt for a second? I actually hit denial because the email came out last Friday, a week ago today, Friday the 13th. And I literally thought, oh, it's a joke. I was like, oh, this is a joke. You know, we're going to have an extended spring break, because he was home, of course, as many of the students are away. He was home for spring break. And I thought, oh, I literally was like, oh, and then I'm like, oh no, it's not. And it took me a while to accept it. Like, oh boy. And having to move through and plan, and like, okay, I gotta travel 16 hours. Do I do a flight? And it was just hectic, crazy, and like, you're right. And so it's not linear. It's sort of all over. And then you go back to still some of the denial, like, and the anger. I feel like the anger just kind of is, it's not that anyone caused it, but it's just like, wow. So so keep going.
Oh, and absolutely. And in that denial phase, that allowed you to kind of, the denial is here. And then underneath that, you're saying, well, what if, what if he's not going back to school? What if, I don't get to see his senior exhibit in person and walking around? What is happening to graduation? And so you're kind of answering those questions with an I don't know what's happening. And that helps, cognitively just put information into place so that you can act on them of, okay, now I need to get a plane ticket.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
And so with anger is a really necessary emotion. It says when something is off, when something's not feeling right to you, how you need to act on something. So a lot of times people see anger as something that you shouldn't have, that's bad. But anger is really what propels people forward into action. So getting that plane ticket, right? Choice words, getting it, but it allowed you to be like, okay, now I need to do this thing.
Right.
And then bargaining is that it's kind of like denial, what if, what if this is just, ends next week and they can go back to school? Or what if, I send an email to the school and, tell them how unhappy I am? Would that change something? And kind of working through that to say, no, what we know is this was a really difficult decision. Everyone's in the same boat. We're not being treated any differently than other schools across the nation. But you kind of need those what ifs to kind of set that stage of, yes, this is fair within everything else that's going on in context. So it gives you a gauge. It lets you question. When they say depression in stages of grief, they're not talking about clinical depression.
Okay.
They're just talking about that significant sense of loss and sadness. So, students or parents just feeling really sad and emotionally drained and tired, and acknowledging that loss. So it's absolutely appropriate to feel devastated, to cry, to, have a loss of appetite, not sleeping very well right now, because it's a lot to process. And, emotionally, it's really difficult. I mean, even my third grader, their state tests got canceled, And he was really upset.
Yeah.
He's like, they're so mean
Yeah.
because that was a benchmark
Right.
for them. It's not the test, it's the idea of I've earned something.
Right.
And I think we're all feeling that.
Right. I want to stay on the depression, and I'm glad to hear this and to hear you say it, because I actually, let me finish. I actually hit the depression. I probably hit the denial and the depression like all at the same time, and was crying because I felt that loss. And as we were talking before going live, you're like, how are you doing? And I said, I just shared how I cry, and I feel like I literally feel like I'm going to cry every time because there is the loss. I was looking forward to watching him walk across the stage. I want his younger sister to see that, the younger siblings, when experiencing, go out and eat steak and shrimp afterwards. You envision everything. But what I found for me, what really helped, was really knowing, like having my tribe in place and who I could talk to, and I really leaning into other moms who, like Daryl's one roommate mom, we've been talking a lot and crying a lot and just processing. And that just helped, because I found that not everybody understands. And I have a friend whose daughter does not attend a residential, she's not in a residential program. She does online school. And it was like, well, I don't see what the big deal is. My kid does school. I'm like, yeah, but you chose online. I didn't choose this. And, and so I think, then I felt anger rise up, because I'm like, why are you judging me for feeling, my emotions were like, across the board. And I just thought, I'm not talking to you for you to shame me and judge me. Just either sit and listen and say, I'm sorry this happened. Don't say you understand, because you don't. But, but to have that. So I would just say, finding whether it's other classmates, because I really, and I'll let you finish in a moment, but watching them bond and make the most of it, it just did this mama's heart really good for the 2 days that I was there. We were there packing, and, it was just like, you guys are going to be okay. Like I just felt that sense of, you're going to be okay, and you're going to get on the other side of this. But yes, but even for us, having people to lean into who understand and sympathize and have some empathy, and just made a big difference. Yeah. Because
I think you touched on a really excellent point, in that you found your tribe and you found those people to lean into, and it wasn't your son.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point.
So one thing for everyone to keep in mind is we have our own process of grief and emotions, and our student has their own, and some will align and some will be very different. Some, parents have this vicarious experience of, you're not just graduating or walking across the stage for yourself, but it's for me. And so really separating that out and keeping your emotions to, in the discussions with other people, friends, other parents, partners, so that your student has the space to process what they need to, and they're not holding things back because they're protecting you.
Yeah.
In those places where it aligns, where they're like, I'm so upset that this isn't going to happen. Absolutely, to validate that and be like, yeah, I am too. I'm really sad for you.
Yeah.
And this is what we can do going forward. So it's not sugarcoating it and being like, don't worry about it. You'll get through this. It's okay. Because they are worried, but you have a right to be worried. Let's figure out how we can work through this together.
Yes. I want to say, I have also, the live, I did a watch on mine. And so there are a couple comments, but a mom just shared about prom and how she literally went through every stage when this all began. She was in denial over the severity of it. She was angry, depressed, and working through acceptance, but it's not going well. And she has, a high school kid. And so as you're saying that, I realized, with my daughter, who's also graduating from high school, when she just shared, prom may be canceled, like just she's going on and on about what may or may not happen and who knows. But as she's like, are we going to have the play? She's in Narnia and she's Susan or whatever. And like she has a lead role and, and there may not be a play and there's not going to be a prom. And, and me being a problem solver, I jumped in and I said, she's talking about graduation. I said, well, we could do something in the backyard. I don't want a backyard ceremony. I want to walk across the stage. I'm like, so not trying to solve it, just sitting and listening and not rushing in to fix it because there is no fix. It's just listening and letting them go through their depression and their grief. So, yeah.
And part of acceptance is being okay with not knowing right now. Being able to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And while that doesn't feel good, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
For now. And as I get more information or, understand what's going on nationally and globally a little bit better, then I can change that I don't know into I know this part and I still don't know this.
Right. That's good. So we talked about denial. We talked about anger, bargaining, what if, depression, acceptance, that final one. Yeah.
So acceptance doesn't mean you're okay with what's going on. It means it's almost like radical acceptance.
Okay.
Like what is for now, and I'm accepting the reality of what is currently present for myself. So for online classes, acceptance is saying, okay, I accept that this is how classes are going to continue for the rest of this semester. I don't have to like it, but if I'm stuck in that bargaining phase or that denial phase or the sadness or depression, I'm not going to be able to really engage in those classes the way I need to. And so you might find you get to a place of acceptance and then something happens and you revert back. And so it's kind of a toggle. As new information comes, you have to accept that.
Yeah, that's true. As you say that, you're right. It's so good to move through it so that you can do the next thing, and even for my daughter, and she's surprised. She's got her acceptance. I got back home Tuesday. She got her acceptance Tuesday, like the same day. I mean, it was just intense, and which was her her one and only choice. She got in and she was super excited. And literally by that night, she said, I think I may have found my roommate. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, there's this class of 2020 group for the university. And I've already started talking to people and we're messaging and we're going to do a call. And like, she literally moved on to that. And I was like, oh, okay. So to watch her move on and just realize that this is kind of what it is, but looking ahead, I think has helped her with going through these stages and getting to the place where it, like you said, we don't know what's going to happen, but accepting it, not that you like it, but let's just move on. So this was good. You gave me language that I needed and an understanding, because it was just kind of, it was just crazy for me and not understanding. I think our kids are more resilient than we realize and handle things a whole lot better. So yes.
In that example, I mean, she has hope for the future. So while she might not be saying, I see my life after this crisis, that's what she's doing, is saying, I see my life on campus next year with my roommate and knowing that this is temporary. And that's the acceptance too, is we don't know when it's going to end, but we know it's temporary.
Right. Exactly. I had someone on my watch say having hope for her future helped her grieve the present. And I thought, wow, that's powerful. So true.
Absolutely.
So we talked about the students moving through it and, so they can keep going. What about the parent? Any advice that you would have for parents who have to kind of go through it and who may still be stuck in denial or anger or, just any advice that you have?
Okay. So I think whatever you're saying to your students, we're great advice givers. Sometimes we have to take a step back and be like, that was a really good, piece of advice I just gave. I should do that myself.
Right.
And so too, acknowledging that you have a lot of emotions. You don't have to be a rock, because if you don't show how you're affected, it's also not giving permission for your students to show their emotion or how they're affected. And that's a balance. So at the same time, it's giving that permission to, be emotional and talk openly about what's going on, but also using those resources in your own life to process like the really significant anxiety, fear. For a parent, it's school, how your student is coping, concern for them, concern for yourself, concern for maybe, an elderly parent, finances. So parents have this whole kind of web of things to be thinking about and being concerned about. And so having that tribe around you is super, super important. Using your own services. So being able just to talk to a therapist who is unbiased and isn't trying to make you feel better necessarily, just wants to listen. Sometimes that can, one, be very cathartic, but also give direction to be like, okay, like I didn't want to burden my partner with this, but this is how I'm feeling and I just needed to get it off of my chest. And I was validated in doing so. And then just really sticking to a routine yourself. So, if you have been told not to go into work, or, you don't have the gym to use, you can't go to a movie or out to dinner, it's finding those things that are check-in points for yourself. So every day I'm still going to get up at 7:00 and I'm going to, go for a jog. I'm going to call, one or two friends every day and just check in on them and have a conversation. Limit how much media you're taking in. So if you're sitting in front of CNN all day, that's not healthy.
That's really good. Yeah.
It's really like 1 or 2 times a day, checking the news, and also limiting social media. So social media can be very fear-mongering. And if someone is talking about how anxious they are and how anxious everyone else should be, it kind of like you call into question, oh my gosh, should I be anxious now too? And kind of like take in the emotions of other people.
Yeah.
So keeping positive people around you, realistic, but positive. I had something else, but it'll come back to me.
Yeah, that was good. I just wanted to, Lori, she's actually on my Facebook watch. I'm not able to pull her comment up because she's not on the Scholarship Shark page, but she says, I'm literally in tears. This has been so, in capital, so good. Thank you, Pam and Ms. Robinson. I talked to my therapist today and he told me I am breathing from a scared place and to work on deep breaths. This is helping. So yeah, I think it's, you go into mama mode and you kind of take care of them. And then, you're thinking next steps and, and for me, it just felt like everything happened all at once, like the SAT was canceled. Like it just literally this is weird. It was like weird, like what is going on here, and so it was just, but having to keep moving and process. But I like how you said for us to check in and not pour it out on them. But to have someone to talk to, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a good friend, somebody to talk to. Because you're right. I found even, what I was feeling, my husband wasn't feeling, was, I'm crying and he was just like not crying. And so, right? Because I've been planning this graduation for 4 years now in my mind. And Absolutely. So, and I've been trying to lose weight because I can envision like how I want the pictures to look and all of that, which hasn't happened yet. But, so this was really good. So, but I love how you said, limit the media, especially the social media, and establish a new routine. Any advice you have? This is going to sound really weird because I love my kids. I have a good disclaimer, but having him home was not the plan for me. We had already Exactly. You know what? Thank you. Yes, because sometimes it can be all about me and I need to recheck that. So, he had already started looking for where he's planning to live after graduation for apartments and sharing all that excitement. And now it's like you're back home and so is your stuff. And literally an hour ago, the UPS man dropped off more boxes of stuff. And so let me not focus on me then. So how do I help him with this a sudden shift of plans? I mean, I guess it's just forward focus, just like what's a good.
Well, and I think it's helping your whole family with the adjustment.
Yes.
Too. I think part of that is having a conversation about how you are both envisioning that looking. So your household is something that is under your control, right? And everything that's out of control right now, that's something you can be very planful about.
Right.
So, we're kind of stuck at home with each other too.
Right. On top of it. And we're running out of snacks too, which isn't good.
But what is time that you want to spend together? What is valuable time that you all need to be alone? Is it appropriate to be in your bedroom with the door closed for 4 hours? Probably, because you're on, a Zoom class and you're doing homework and you're talking to friends. And so even having those discussions of what are appropriate touch points for us in a household to come together, and then how do we make that meaningful? So really, making a concerted effort to have other discussions than coronavirus. Or what's happening right now. Watching, a movie or a board game, or just telling funny stories, checking in on the day like you would normally.
Right. I love that advice. I absolutely, I love that. I think because it's been so much doing that we never sat down to think about, because at least with like spring break, it's a week, that your college kid may be home, and during the semester breaks, okay, it's 3 or 4 weeks, in December, and they're going back. But, with the uncertainty in this, even with some of the recruiters, the follow-up work is, this office is closed or we're delayed. And so you're right. I never thought to have the conversation. Now, I will say my daughter, who's the high school senior, she did say, is he going to start doing dishes? And is he back in the chore rotation? She's thinking all of that. And is he going to use up all the gas in the car? And I'm like, I'm not even thinking that. So you're right. It's just that dynamic all over again. When you bring your college kid back home, or they come back home, you're right. They didn't expect this. This is not in their plan at all. It's not in your plan. But having that conversation, which is something we did not do. We totally did not do. And so we will be doing that. Tonight's a good night to do that. So.
And it might change.
Yeah.
So too, this is kind of what we're doing right now. And it might be different a week from now or a month from now.
Yeah. I'm hearing a lot of that. Have a plan, but be flexible. Like that seems to be the theme, so that you kind of have something you're working towards, but be okay if it should shift and change.
Right.
Yes.
And as humans, we don't like uncertainty.
Yeah.
We want to know what's happening. And so it's really, focusing on what you know for certain and what you can control and what kind of schedule you can create for yourself. And that is going to create a calm amongst changing information and, regulations each day.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much. I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you've got to get back to work. And so I really appreciate it. But is there anything that we didn't cover that you would want to share?
I don't think so. I really appreciate you doing this. I think it's an absolutely necessary conversation to have.
I feel calmer, believe it or not. I honestly, if I were hooked up to like a blood pressure thingy cuff, I literally feel that much more, not necessarily grounded, but centered. And so thank you. I literally could feel my anxiety like just going down. So you're good. So, yes.
You're not alone. I mean, I think what this has shown through Ringling, even more than it already has, is we're a family, we're all connected, we're a community, and we really want to make sure everyone feels good, feels connected, feels supported, and that, you know, the more you can reach out and keep that community alive, the more successful we'll be as a school and as students and as parents and just as a whole Ringling family. Or other schools as well.
Yep. Oh, I just have a typo. I was typing so fast. Okay. Okay. There we go. Great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Robinson. This was good. This was so good. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time, and you guys had to make hard choices. I was talking to a close friend. I'll say this in closing, but because we don't know, there's so many unknowns. We'll probably look back and realize that all the right decisions were made, the hard choices, but in the moment, it just looks like, well, that whole bargaining.
Absolutely.
And so we don't know, and we won't know until we get way on the other side of this and down some time and distance. But yeah, so I recognize and acknowledge that, I can't imagine the pressure that administrators are under and having to think about the safety and the well-being of an entire campus and all those moving parts. So I just wanted to acknowledge that you guys, along with other campuses, made the hard choices. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate having you. And
welcome to talk to you as always.
Yes. I'll see you in the fall, hopefully.
Absolutely. We'll be here.
Yes. All right. Bye.
Bye.
So, that was great. I just want to thank Dr. Robinson for just jumping on and sharing that. Again, this is not only the Facebook Live, the YouTube Live, but it will also be today's podcast episode. And a quick reminder, if you weren't on the front end of the conversation, because we want to just keep moving, because we will get through this and we'll get through this together. But if you have a high school senior, a class of 2020, or high school junior class of 2021, on Monday at 2 p.m., I'm doing a virtual college tour, mini masterclass for high school students. So I know high schoolers typically aren't on Facebook, but they can hop on our YouTube page. And if you go to www.thescholarshipshark.com/live, let me just put this in /live, you'll be able to see the link to go ahead and join, click on the YouTube link. And then that way you'll be able to click subscribe or get notification or whatever that is, so that your young person will be notified when that session goes live next week. And I'm going to be doing a couple of them because I'm right there with you in terms of having kids at different stages who are moving out the door. And it's important we really do have to keep moving. Last night I met with my scholarship mastery students in the class of 2020 who are starting school in the fall. And they're still applying for scholarships. They're still winning scholarships. So it's important that we keep our kids moving. And so I'm offering just a few things because they're home. They're home during the day. So definitely check out that page, thescholarshipshark.com/live. You'll see our Facebook and YouTube live broadcasts. And next week, we're doing our how to do a virtual college tour. It's going to be in depth. There's a 3-page handout for your student to download. So definitely get that. And that's it. Thank you for joining me. Bye.